I'm gonna play Wanda Cooper Jones, the mother of Ahmaud Arbery. She said what she had to say at the sentencing of the three Cretans that took the life of her son. She, her Ahmaud's father, her sister, his sister, all got to say their say, which I think really was impactful for me to hear. And once again, Wanda Cooper Jones says all of the things that need to be said. Let's play the clips, Ms.
I spoke to Christian Clark and the lead attorney, Tara Lyons, begging them to please not take this plea deal. They ignored my cry. I begged them. Even after the family stood before the judge and asked the judge to not take this plea deal, the lead prosecutor, Tara Lyons, stood up and asked the judge to ignore the family's cry. Justice. That's not justice for Ahmaud.
Come on.
What we got today, we wouldn't have gotten today if it wasn't for the fight that the family put up on January the 31st. What the DOJ did today, they was made to do today.
Come on.
It wasn't because what they wanted to do. They were made to do their job today.
Okay, that was Wanda Cooper Jones with an amen chorus.
Yes.
We always are in church. We're always in church encouraging and supporting. So I appreciate the background as well.
Don't you love our people?
I do. They're
it.
gonna let you know that you're saying something right or wrong.
Yes.
And I love that. 866-801-8255. Listening to this, we've talked about this. Angi Porter is here. About the plea deal and what that would mean for this, because you were on here, you talked about what that would mean for this hate crime trial. What was the impact of that? And we're talking about Merrick Garland's Department of Justice. Merrick Garland's Department of Justice cut a deal, and the deal did what exactly?
Well, the deal that was rejected said that they would spend 30 years in prison, and acknowledged that they did the crime because of Ahmaud Arbery's race. So that would have been on the record. And it just represents, how tone deaf, for a better word, lack of a better word, the lack of awareness that prosecutors, particularly when they're white, have when dealing with Black families, with Black victims. So prosecutors' client technically is the government, it's the people who are citizens of the government they represent. So if you're a prosecutor from the state, for the state, your client are the citizens of that state. Same with the U.S. attorneys here, the AUSAs, the assistant U.S. attorneys. Their clients is like the general public of the United States. But you deal with individual victims, and those can be families related to the person who was killed. And they showed this lack of compassion for that family. I mean, they should have recalibrated their interests to match the family they were serving. That family did not want a plea deal. They did not want the defendants to go to federal prison. And maybe we should talk about that, because
that's where they're going.
That's where they probably are going right now. but
wait,
that's beside the point. That's beside the point.
No, but let us understand why a guilty verdict here, because they were all found guilty. They were all found guilty in Georgia, where they were found guilty in the local trial. They were all found guilty and sentenced, right? They, because we were here when that happened. Yeah. Now they were found guilty today. All three of them, a jury found Gregory McMichael, Travis McMichael, and William Roddy Bryan guilty of several counts in the killing of Ahmaud Arbery, and it was a hate crime. A panel of 8 white people, 3 Black people, 1 Hispanic, got the case on Monday. The men pled not guilty to one count of interference of rights and attempted kidnapping. The McMichaels were each charged with using, carrying, and brandishing a firearm in relation to a crime of violence. The McMichaels and Brian were, of course, already convicted in the state court of murdering 25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery, and they both got life sentences. The McMichaels were not given the possibility of parole. How does this guilty verdict impact that guilty verdict and that sentence? Does it?
Well, these are different crimes, so different systems, different court systems. There has to be a sentence for the crime. When you go through a trial, there has to be a sentence for the crime. So the federal court is going to have its own sentencing. They haven't set the date yet, but it'll be set in the next couple of weeks. And they will be looking at the federal sentencing guidelines. The law lets them go up to life in these crimes, so they can choose what they want. It's probably gonna be hefty, given the plea deal was for 30 years before it was rejected. It's probably gonna be something like that or longer, because prosecutors tend to seek longer if you make them go through a trial to get the conviction. So they're gonna have to serve that time for these crimes. And the way you serve time for federal crimes is in federal prison. And the Bureau of Prisons will decide which prisons they go to, likely Georgia federal prisons. So in all practicality, they will be serving at least the first portion of their sentence, because they have the life sentences in state court concurrently, but in federal prison. And I know that was the big objection from the family. I think the point I want to make, though, is it doesn't matter that we wind up at the same place. What really matters is the dignity of that family and your dealings with them. So even if the prosecutors, went to pursue that plea, they should have at least had that difficult conversation with the family. And by all indicators, they didn't. And that was a failing. And that, again, is one reason this legal system is so biased against Black people, because even the prosecutors, even the people doing the case for y'all's behalf, if they can't relate to you, if they don't see you as their family, they're going to deal with you a little differently.
One more. I'm getting a text from Loree about the Assistant Attorney General. As we look at a system, and, I'm struggling, and I know you're about to teach this through that lens, and I want to sit in this for a minute. And I know we got to go, but as we're processing a system that had us designated as 3/5 of human being for political purposes, for designations of power, right, in this country, that denied and undermined the right to vote, both through de facto and de jure measures, right? In a system that literally is pretzeling, gerrymandering around people's ability to vote in many states in this country, closing down voting places, making it really difficult. How do we change the system? I'm looking at Loretta Lynch fighting for the NFL to clear their racist name, and it's interesting being Black bodies in these white spaces, and these spaces, again, designed to denigrate these Black bodies. Is it possible? Because I talk about coming onto the inside. We got to run for office, and we got to vote, and we got to do these things. But you sat in these seats, Angi, before you leave. Honestly, can this system be fixed?
I don't have a lot of faith in that prospect, because changing a culture takes movements. Individuals can't. I've seen so many Black practitioners, and you see it with Black judges, you see it with Black prosecutors. They go in, they want to change the culture, and perhaps they can move the needle a little, but one person going against a whole culture, going against groupthink, and then they have the emotional burden of educating their peers, and then they have the emotional dismay of suffering microaggressions every day. That is not likely. That is a very hard task. And I think we as a people can't expect much change to come from individuals. So if things are going to change, it's going to take a movement of people. And this system is very smart. It's very nimble. It can adapt in ways that are, unpredictable.
It's like a virus.
Yeah. Yeah. It's chimerical. It changes. And so, even like with the body cams, we pushed for body cams so hard, and now the police got secret codes, and signals to turn off the body cams. Like, okay, they've evolved. So it's going to take some real creativity and a concerted effort on the community level to really think about ways to change this. And I don't know that I can come up with those specifics, but I think if we continue to be in conversation, we can do something at least to protect our people, and at least, to create that outcry and outrage that makes people act, that makes others, allies or whoever act accordingly. But yeah, we have to know what we're up against for sure.
And if more of us had the spirit of Wanda Cooper Jones, who absolutely had a vested interest in making sure that her son got some modicum of justice, she would not stop. And we say the same thing about Trayvon Martin's mom and so many other mothers, Eric Garner's mom. Like, there's so many mothers who just wouldn't stop until they got justice for their child.
That's an important note that you're hitting on, because there's this culture that we have been impacted by that really it diminishes empathy and it emphasizes individualism. And more of our people are subscribing to that thing where it's like, I don't need to think about that. I'm over here trying to get my bag or whatever, and that mentality is what will ensure our demise in this system. We have to start really working on our empathy. It might not be your brother, your son, your cousin, your sister, but you need to act like it is. That's what it's going to take for us to get out of this situation. And so we really need to be attentive to those tendencies that we're sort of subscribing to from the dominant culture, which is that individualistic, I'm doing self-care over here while y'all suffering, no, we have to really be in it. So,
okay. Well, I'm actually going to pick up on that theme as it relates to what's happening in Ukraine. Believe it or not. Yeah, I'm bringing Africa into the Ukrainian discussion. Watch what I do.